Good morning. I'm very pleased to join you today on the occasion of the first official event for AFA. Women's networks are critical, and one of the things that we learned in the UK through the work that Lord Davis did many years ago is that when there are too many women's networks and they don't come together, the fragmentation means they have no impact. So it's exciting to see a national network online which hopefully will allow women to come together and to leverage each other and to indeed start to have a message collectively to the country and to things that need to happen. So congratulations on getting going with this network, and I wish you great success with it. The topic today, which is a long one, but digital hyper-connected world, is actually something that I'm fascinated with because I struggle with it every day. But also, I think it's something very close to EBRD. We believe in creating and changing lives. We believe in developing and helping work with authorities to create inclusive, well-governed, sustainable economies based in market terms, and indeed we work primarily with private sector. So for us, I think, when we look at our investments, both debt and equity, in this country, we've invested, since we started operating in 2001, we've invested over 4.4 billion euros in over 200 projects across a number of sectors, so we don't have any specific focus in terms of biasing, if you will. I think for us, one of the key things we also work on, and again, the authorities are key partners, we're in the process this week of consulting on our new country strategy, is to also look at the business environment, the legal and regulatory framework, which allows and creates the environment in which people invest and create jobs. So change is happening in this area of digitalization faster than at least I can keep up with it. It's changing lives faster than I think we really understand. And I think it's very hard for people that grew up, as I did in the 60s and 70s, to really understand the implications and the potential of this. Keeping up is hard. It's hard for companies that have legacy equipment, legacy processes, to move into the new era of digitization. Yet they need to. So I think it's an area that we clearly will be interested in as we look at going forward. I think in the case of Serbia, I believe, together with other Western Balkan countries, you're actually in the lead. The Western Balkan leaders have come together, the 6 countries, and decided to create one regional economic area. It creates a market of 20 million people. And that's a market that people invest in which jobs get created. Areas of digital markets, smart growth, and actually, interesting enough, the mutual acceptance of professional qualifications cross-border, which creates a mobility that otherwise would be difficult to have. From the EBRD side, we've continued to support the Serbian authorities and the country in terms of developing its digital infrastructure and develop this integration. We do things, simple things like road and rail for the physical side. We've worked in creating a cross-border stock exchange where different stock exchanges from different countries can trade on each other's exchanges, creating integrated markets. And we also look at the softer side, things like business registries that enable better understanding of who's involved in which companies and what is out there. So there are a lot of things happening in this space. I think Serbia's participation and leadership in this is critical. So the question is, how do we harness this? What do we do with it? How do we get the economic benefit from it? In terms of the opportunities it creates for women and women-led businesses, this is an area that's growing and changing. And women coming into the system and working in the system generally have newer, smaller businesses, and they are innovating as they set up their companies. So there's an opportunity for women in their own businesses to be at the forefront in this area of digitization. At the same time, it also creates job opportunities, where I believe that women's understandings of the complexities of managing multiple phases of a life and work balance are going to be great innovators in helping make this space something that suits and provides better productivity. So women will play a role in the innovation, but also I think it gives individual women a chance to enhance their earnings. We know from studies that have been done that women play a smaller share in the ITC market and job areas. But we also know women that are in the front end of this, of the fast-growing industries, actually get better paid. So we need to start looking at how we turn this change that's going on, or this evolution that's going on, into opportunities for women. And as the Deputy Prime Minister referenced, we need to think about the education process, the way in which we raise our children, but also how we help each other to play a role in this. How do we access the jobs? How do we get people interested in STEM jobs? And that's something I think that educators need to help with, we all need to help each other with, and I actually believe this network is going to help. Also, I think we need to think about the STEM companies. We know if you look at Facebook and some of the newer social media programs, they're run by men, they're staffed by men. And we need to help these organizations, not just those two, but more, understand the risk that they put into their business by not having gender diversity. So many of the users are the women, and yet the women aren't actually involved in developing it. So I think getting them and working with them to help them understand the risks that they take, which is, I think, part of what we can do, is important. Beyond STEM, there's the aspect of services, and how does this whole idea of a hyper-connected digital world affect services? Clearly, how services are designed and delivered are important to everyone and matter. The question is who's left out and who's included. We find through our work that many of the municipalities actually don't consult the women in their environments. They have their meetings, they have their design committees, but they actually don't consult with the women, particularly the women that run households, which means the services that get delivered don't do what they need to do. So in ITC, we know from the work we did in our transition report 2016, that the quality of opportunity for women is actually much higher in this segment. And their role in terms of providing improved access to services and quality of services is fundamental to economic growth. So women-led households need the efficiency that these developments are going to provide. Things like, if you just think from a banking side, digital payments, the e-government payment of Social Security and benefits into bank accounts, it means that people don't have to go stand in banks. They don't have to queue to collect their checks. They don't have to go deposit them. So already there's a savings, and it's laudable that I think the Serbians are providing leadership in this in terms of the e-government. But there's also things like women's businesses have more difficulty accessing credit lines, and we know that. I'll come back to that. But the idea of any electronic and digitalized type of banking means that payments come to you, you can transfer money more efficiently, means you can manage your cash better, and that for your businesses will always be critical. The other aspect in terms of digital development, EBRD has been working with the Serbians for quite a while now and looking at the information infrastructure. We worked in financing the change from analog to digital. We financed the towers being rebuilt, the technology upgrading, and that process freed up spectrum that allowed development and further enhancement of the mobile broadband network. We're currently working with the Serbian authorities on the national broadband program, which is looking at the efficiencies, effectiveness, access, and use of the broadband network. All of these information infrastructure investments and work provide time savings, cost savings, and provide access to information that allows more flexibility, and all of that leads to better productivity and better opportunities. The only trouble with these little things is they turn themselves off if you don't touch them. The last piece on the whole thing of services is the aspect of software. We work with, for us to reach our clients, and fortunately I've heard there's some of you here today, we work through local banks. The local banks give us a network into remote areas of the country that we couldn't reach otherwise with our small office. And it allows us to hopefully educate the banks and bring them on board to creating products that serve women's businesses. The digital aspect is quite interesting, because what we've found is the banks are now using their MIS and developing their MIS to better understand how they're servicing women's businesses, what their shortcomings are, how their portfolios are developing. And what they're doing now is they're actually gathering disaggregated gender data on their lending activities and services. And so UniCredito and Intesa are the two banks that we work predominantly here. Since 2016, we've invested $23.5 million in over 600 women's businesses, and we're continuing to work on the program. The banks are here today, I believe, and so I hope you'll take a chance to at least hear what they're doing. With the disaggregated data that they're gathering, they're able to start looking at patterns of how many women's loans are rejected versus loans to men-owned businesses. They're able to look at what the shortcomings were in some of the applications that allow them to find ways to help women better plan their businesses, present their businesses, understand their cash flows, so that they can provide themselves and present themselves as more credible borrowers to the banks. Through the Women in Business program that we work with the banks on, and thanks to the Luxembourg and Swedish governments, we have technical assistance money. And that money is used to provide training and coaching to women-owned businesses through the program. We also have the benefit now with the banks that they're tracking through this new data and MIS that they get, the number of their portfolios on a gender basis, but they're also tracking things that the underlying women businesses are doing in terms of creating jobs and in terms of improving profitability, revenues. And we actually report back through our program to our shareholders on this basis to show the impact that we believe we're having. So not only does this new digital, hyper-connected world give us opportunities in terms of employment and enhancing our businesses, it gives better service provision, and it actually creates opportunity of access to finance. It also provides an amazing outlet of information. And if you think of the internet, so when I was born, we didn't have calculators, okay? We had slide rules. So if I think of that to where we are today and the internet, and the amount of information that you could get. I grew up with a newspaper that my parents ordered that came through the door, and TV. So if you think of how we get information, how we consume information, what comes to us, I actually many days feel just completely overwhelmed by it all. Because it's how do you pick what you read? So if you're thinking of yourself or your business, how do you use this to promote yourself, your business? How do you create a platform on which you can now sell your product globally? You don't need to be restricted to a corner shop. So the internet and this whole connectivity creates an amazing opportunity. And I'm going to tell you one story because I think it's quite an interesting one. During the US election, which I'm sure you're well aware of the outcome of, I have friends that were very strongly Democrat and friends that are very strongly Republican. And they all have their Facebook pages, and some were very prolific at posting things. And all the Democrats were Hillary is wonderful and Trump is sick. And of course, Trump is wonderful and Hillary is a crook. That's what you saw. And their friends responded to it, and you saw the responses. And it was all self-reinforcing. So if you follow your Republican friends and you read the responses, you get one storyline. We also know we now have fake news. So how much of it is real or not real? I have also heard stories in talking with young people in some of our countries that the way they get their information is by what their friends put on Facebook and the articles. So I think we have to all challenge ourselves in this digital world to, one, not rely on one frame of reference. To be honest, with this and your phones, you can get newspapers from all different types of views. And I think it behooves us to find means to read different people's perspectives for our own development, but also if you think of your businesses. You need to understand the people out there, and that means you need to diversify your source of information. The internet makes it easy and makes it very complex. So think about how you can use the internet to ensure that you get a broad perspective of information. And the last one I'll leave you with is, I think, the challenge of social media. Social media is hugely powerful. You can promote yourself on it, you can promote your business, but I also think we all have to think of what we use to promote ourselves and our businesses with. I was recently in Kazakhstan, and I was speaking at their women's business conference. And I met a number of young people, and after the conference, they all came up and said, "Oh, can I be on Facebook with you?" And I was like, "Facebook? Really?" And I got a number of invitations, and in the end, I accepted them. But with help of a Kazakh colleague, I wrote an email to all of them saying, or a note back saying, "I think if you want to promote yourself professionally, you should be using a vehicle like LinkedIn." And I can tell you, once you get on someone's Facebook page, it's quite amazing what they post. You know, I now know this woman's wardrobe inside out because she posts every picture of her new dress and shoes. So I think we do have to think that the Facebook and all this stuff, it's not private. Don't believe it's private. It can be tweeted on, it can be shared, it can be whatever. So we have to think hard of how we use an amazing tool to profile ourselves professionally and how we profile our businesses. But we also have to recognize that once it's out there, it's out there. So think hard about how you leverage this network. It's an amazing one. You've got a great series of discussions. I'm not going to take any more of the time. I'll be with you for at least the next session, and I hope you have a great conference. And I'll be back, so I'll be looking forward to following up on how the network does. Thank you very much.